You may remember our next two industry speakers from Grow Tech Fest last year when we were tackling the beginning of the AI wave, right? Brad Ledford and Michael Coogan. They shared what is both practical and what is possible in the world of AI last year. But this year, they are back. They are back and will update us on the state of artificial intelligence as it relates to startups, small businesses, and entrepreneurs in Northern California and beyond. So Brad and Michael will cover the meaningful changes that they have implemented in their businesses in the last year and also answer your AI questions. Earlier, you might have, I think I said something about gathering questions from throughout the North State so we could answer your questions in real time. All right, so covering everything from marketing strategies to image generation tools to legal concerns, which, there's a lot of unknowns, right? So there will also be opportunity for audience Q&A. As Brad says, it should be, wait for the dad joke, AI amazing. Okay, all right. Okay, please give a big welcome to the stage, Brad Ledford and Michael Coogan. Let's give it up.
All right. How you guys doing? Awesome. I think it's appropriate that we walked up to an AI-generated song. Can you play that again one more time? We decided we would make this part AI, a little pump-up music for us before we got up here. Eva mentioned that we were here last year speaking on what's practical and what's possible. And how many people were here last year? Great, good to see you guys again. Thank you for coming back. Again, my name is Michael. This is my good friend Brad. Brad is the brains of the operation, and I am, I guess, whatever I am. Comic relief.
Taller guy.
Tall, comic relief. So we were asked to kind of, actually a few months back as we were planning this time, knowing that we wanted to give a little bit of time to AI. We were 2 days last year. Brad and I got a lot more time to talk through a variety of different elements around AI and just its practicalities and possibilities. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of great feedback from you guys. And so a few months ago, or a couple months ago, Eva sent out a request for questions from Grow Tech members and community members at large and various entrepreneurs of questions that they generally have around AI. And so what Brad and I have done is we've kind of boiled that down. There was lots of them. It's 5 or 6 pages of questions that were asked kind of into these general categories. And so we're going to do our best to answer them. So before we get started, I want to take a quick poll. How many people in the room are using AI like on a weekly basis? Raise your hand. Okay. So when I asked this question a year ago, that was a lot less of hands that went up. So that's cool to see adoption. Yeah. So how many people use it every single day, all the time? That's great. How many people in the room are still a little scared of it, a little terrified of it, maybe not quite sure? I do see some hands.
Audio guy is freaked out.
Do see some hands. So we're going to kind of cover all of it. So if we don't answer your question, we're going to have a Q&A time. And so feel free to ask us the question there. Hopefully we have an answer. If not, we can just always ask AI what the answer to the question is. And so we're gonna jump on in. So the questions were basically these 5 categories: kind of adoption, implementation, integration, trust and reliability, cost and investment, kind of security, privacy, and control, and then kind of the industry landscape and future trends. It was a lot of questions, but a lot of them kind of followed these kind of similar trends, and we kind of summarized those up. So I'm going to take the first couple, Brad's going to take a few, and then we'll have our time for our Q&A. So adoption, implementation, and integration. So these are kind of the core questions that were asked. How do I decide if AI is right for my business, and where can it help me the most? The implementation question was, what's the best way to start using AI tools and improve my business operations? And then integration. How can I make AI work smoothly with my existing systems and workflows? Those are all great questions. So let's first, how do I decide if AI is right for my business? The easy answer is yes. It is right for your business. As Chad was mentioning earlier, that it's kind of like cell phones, it's kind of like calculators. I think all of us can kind of look at AI from the standpoint of it being novel and being new, but eventually it'll be normal. the way that we use it. And Mael's talked about AI has been around for a long time. It's in a lot of things that we use. And really the thing that we've been teed up to and all the hype is really around generative AI. And with OpenAI coming out a couple of years ago and just all the tools that have kind of exploded from that. So obviously, I think it is right for your business. If you're not using it in your business in some shape or form right now, and you don't start to implement it in some way soon, you will be left behind by those businesses who are using it. So this is some ideas, general ideas, but these are generally true when you're thinking about adopting anything is, particularly with AI, think about what can be done with needs to be done, tasks that needs to be done frequently. So those scheduling or taking notes, looking for those activities or set processes that don't require a lot of creative input, or complex decision making. So those are easy ways to get started. So for example, I think one of the easiest ways that a business can implement AI right off the get-go is using like an AI note taker like Otter AI or something like that. I use that on a regular basis, and it's been very transformative to just speeding up my business. So is there time-saving potential? We spend a lot of time doing things as the course of our operating our businesses from day to day or living our lives that are just pretty boring, repetitive things. How many people just love responding to emails? Did I see any email? I saw two hands go up. Yeah, AI is really good for responding to emails.
3 masochists in this room.
Yeah. What's that?
I said there's 3 masochists in this room.
Yeah, exactly. So just kind of considering what tasks you can potentially automate within your organization. There are some that you're doing on a repetitive basis that AI tools exist in some shape or form to really lift that burden for you. Email is a great example. Note-taking is another example. I think about starting with kind of high impact areas. If you deal with customer service, I think, I have solved some pretty major kind of customer issues using AI because I just didn't know how to phrase it or word something, being able to use the tools to kind of help me word it in a way that I could help solve a problem for a client, but just really focus on tasks that kind of impact productivity, customer service, satisfaction, things of that nature. Begin small. It was even mentioned earlier about just starting, being an entrepreneur, just kind of get started, but start small. A lot of people, AI can be really overwhelming, and there's so many bells and whistles and things, and it's easy to get out over your skis when you really could just do some small, simple tasks. And AI is like anything in the sense that when you first start using a tool, you have to use it on some regularity to get used to it and know how it works for you. And so you need to dig in and start using it. I mentioned Otter earlier. This, again, is something that I use on a regular basis because I'm in a lot of meetings. And so now I no longer have to take written notes. I can record those notes either via Zoom or even in a meeting and just say, hey, do you mind if I record this meeting? And then I can go back and I can transcribe those notes. I don't miss things anymore. I can really quickly outline the key deliverables. I can quickly summarize an email. And it just speeds up kind of the whole communication cycle between that meeting and that client. It's really quite impressive. In fact, last year I shared an example of where I was in a meeting and I was able to turn around the whole deliverable document to a client based on a meeting using AI, using Otter, using ChatGPT in about 15 minutes. And before ChatGPT, it probably would have taken me a couple hours to sort through my notes, to write that email, to create it. So obviously when you're in business, time is money, right? So that's super important. So just specific areas that you can work on. And if you're wondering whether it's saving you time, just write it down and track it. So again, just focus on short-term gains. Really kind of set clear time frames. If you want to implement it with your team, run some test projects. Look for quick wins that you can use it for within your organization. And I've noticed that a lot of times of implementing AI, it's kind of an operations task because you have to be able to kind of step outside of the things that you do and think about the flow of how things connect together to be able to kind of piece in where AI can work for you. So just as you start executing, just after you kind of done some trial runs or figuring it out, and obviously there's people who aren't really fully integrated with it in your business, just evaluate and expand and start small. My entire team uses it. I was estimating a couple weeks ago that we probably do 2 years ago the work of probably 8 to 10 people with like 3 people. 3 and 3.5 people, because of just various things that we can leverage using AI to do and to accomplish. And so just add in new things. I mean, I'm always looking for new opportunities for us to systemize AI into our workflows. I live in a world where sometimes we have very large proposals we have to present, and we respond to RFPs. Anybody ever respond to an RFP in this room? And they're from the devil? Because no 2 RFPs are the same, right? They're all different. They ask for lots of complicated information, or you have different proposals or reports. And so I have built some custom GPT tools to basically just go through, strip out all the information that I need to be able to respond to a proposal, and it helps me be able to take what maybe would take 3 or 4 or 5 days to respond, that we've been able to respond to some pretty large RFPs within a day or so because of tools that we've built. And just, again, saving time and putting time back in our pockets that will lead to other profitable opportunities. So making it work with existing systems, this is one of the questions. How do I make AI work smoothly with my existing systems and workflows? A year ago on this stage, I said it's going to be possible in the future that everybody can have, in some shape or form, have their own custom LLM. At that point, neither Google or Microsoft basically had AI implemented into their systems. But right now you can go to Google and you can have AI tools built into a lot of the documents and the workflow that you have, as well as the Microsoft products. This keeps more and more of these opportunities exist. We use a project management tool called ClickUp. It has lots of AI function in it now. Most tools are going to have AI in them if they don't already. And so adding it to your existing workflow, it really isn't that difficult. It's just kind of starting to use the tools that exist within the current platforms that most of us use already. Some other examples of just using tools like Zapier or Power Automate, which is a Microsoft product, of just integrating your tools with other AI tools, and just as far as workflow goes. Some of this you're just going to have to experiment with and just try. There is one of the things Brad and I always talk about is that even after all the progression with the tools that we have, is that there's really no way, there's no one ring to rule them all. You still have to kind of Frankenstein a variety of different tools together to be able to operate your business and use AI within it. And then obviously you can opt for some cloud-based solutions. Again, you'd think I would endorse Otter AI as often as put it in here.
How's that referral
I should put a referral link in here, just various cloud-based tools. You just all of this to implore you. You just need to go. You need to figure it out. You need to assign somebody within your team to kind of own this. If this is not you, to how can we make AI more useful within our organization and more efficient? This is just some sample workflows, and then I'm going to turn it over to Brad, and we can kind of answer your questions. So obviously, meeting notes. This is probably one of the most easiest ones to implement right now. Is to start recording all your meetings using transcription tools. Use it to summarize your key points, create tasks, set reminders. For me, I was a terrible note taker, and this has been a game changer for my life. Obviously, scheduling, using tools. I've been exploring this tool called XAI. If anybody play with that scheduling tool, it's a smart scheduling tool that kind of looks at your calendar, and if your calendar changes, then it automatically knows your next priority and kind of helps you sort your calendar out, because I'm not very good at that, and so AI is making me better at those kind of things as well. And just categorize and prioritize, just being able to do a variety of different things. We had this conversation within our team recently of just being able to. ChatGPT is a remarkable actual project manager when you give it all the right information to help be able to organize and prioritize your tasks. And so being able to say, here's all the things I have to do, here's the priority, being able to plug it into an AI tool like that and be able to kind of get a good idea of how I should go about my day. And then we use it a lot for our client workflows. We've built a bunch of templates for different things with our clients. Again, being able to speed up communication, being able to keep things on brand, keep things moving forward. most of these prompts up here are just because I knew we wouldn't have speaker notes and I would need to look. Old man cheating style. So reports. This is one of the things. I'm working on a very large project for a city entity, and I have built 4 or 5 custom tools that are really easy to do now because ChatGPT walks you through how to create a custom GPT. But just being able to pull information out of massive amounts of data. We have a bunch of customer survey or business survey data. And so just being able to really quickly ask questions of that data, pull that information out, when you would have to manually go through it and make all these cross-references. I mean, it blows my mind sometimes how intuitive it can be when you ask it the right kind of questions to be able to just speed up reporting and data analysis. And there's obviously a variety of different tools, and this is just my own personal take. I live in kind of 3 worlds where I use ChatGPT very regularly. I use an Anthropic product called Claude, and I also use Google Gemini. And you're asking, like, why do I use all 3 of those products? Because they all have kind of different strengths. Like, I feel like ChatGPT does a much better job at just general reasoning, sorting things out. Its natural language is okay. It does all right if you work to kind of train the voice, where, like, say, Claude is much better at like natural language, of being able to like get words out that sound like a human wrote them and not an AI wrote them. And then I have found that Gemini is way better at like analyzing data and looking at data sets. And so that's how I use those 3 tools kind of in concert throughout my day as I'm working through projects. Trust and reliability.
This is still you.
This is still me.
Keep going.
Still me. How much time? Okay, I got 1 minute.
Let's do it.
Got 1 minute.
I trust you.
What are the benefits and potential risks of ethical responsibilities of using AI in my business, and how do I ensure AI use is trustworthy, transparent, and supportive of not replacing essential tasks? So I guess the first thing is the benefits. We've kind of talked about this. I mean, it's this efficiency. You can get data-driven insights. There's just consistency that AI is able to produce on a regular basis. If you learn how to communicate, I have noticed, I made these parallels, that talking to AI tools made me a better human communicator, because just being able to give context, being able to ask follow-up questions, being able to frame things in a way to get the right result. So being able to get those consistencies out of it. What are some of the potential risks? These are some of the questions that were asked. I guess there is an aspect of dependency. One of the risks for me is that because I know I have ChatGPT tools or AI tools, is sometimes I do push the limits of a deadline a little bit, getting to the end, because I'm going to rely on an AI tool to get some stuff done for me or help me. There were some questions about bias and fairness. AI is biased because it's trained on data that it's given. In fact, if you ask AI tools if they're biased, they will give you that same answer, and they say they try not to be, but they are biased, so you have to be careful with that. And then just having proper oversight when you do it. And then there were some questions about ethical responsibility. Copyright was a question that came up. Most of the major tools have kind of built-in systems to protect against copyright. Though most of the major tools, if you know how to work around them, you can kind of get them to do things they weren't intended to do. But I've seen, like with some of the image generator tools, that they've come out with policies that any image that they have generated from their tool, that they will back you in court if there's a copyright issue around it, because they are basically kind of taking ownership for making sure they're not stealing other people's work in that process. As good as AI is getting, it is still very, very flawed. And this is the part where I think that humans will always need to be included, because you need to be able to verify what comes out. You need to be a subject matter expert for the most part, because I don't know if you noticed, but AI tools are really good at sounding legit. And then when you read it, you're like, yeah, something's not quite right there. And so I've seen it throw off lots of errors. So it's really important that you pay close attention to that. And then obviously just choosing tools that protect data and privacy. The kind of the aspect of trust, is I would approach this: should you trust AI? Yes and no. You would trust it the same way you would trust any other thing that you were vetting into your business. That you would take your time, that you would move slowly, that you would see, is it doing what I want it to do? Is it behaving the way I want it to behave? And over time, you start to gain a little bit more trust in what it delivers for you. But at the same time, you kind of keep it at a little bit of arm's distance with all of that. So most tools will communicate their level of data sharing. You can turn this off with a lot of tools if you don't want to share your data. And just being wise, I wouldn't put proprietary, confidential information into one of these tools. That's just my opinion. If I wanted to crunch data around it, I would just strip it down, anonymize it, do something of that nature, but just being wise in the process. And there's the aspect of just, is AI going to replace humans? I think Chad mentioned it, or somebody mentioned it earlier. I think it's going to not replace, but displace, and just create more industries, and people will move around, and those who adopt it sooner than later are going to have more opportunity sooner than later in the midst of AI. But I've noticed within our organization, because we are a thinking, creative, knowledge-based work, that it hasn't replaced anybody. It's just enhanced the abilities that my team members have. So I took 2 of your minutes.
It's okay.
You okay? We good?
We're good.
All right.
So we also got a lot of focus on cost and investment. I think there's open questions about, how do I pay for all this? What does this look like, from a balance sheet perspective? And, I didn't do all the homework he did, so I don't have any slides. But one of the key things that I've learned is that your strategy for how you're going to use AI is going to dictate a lot of how you pay for it. So one strategy, for instance, is to use a hybrid approach where we're going to go and grab the best of breed tools and sort of let our team figure it out, right? So we might have 5 or 6 different specialized tools, and so we're going to have 5 or 6 different bills to pay, ultimately. That's probably an expensive way to go about it, but it might be the most effective use of AI. Another strategy is to use a fully verticalized solution like Google Gemini. Maybe you're a Google Workspace client or customer already, and you're just going to flip a switch and turn on Google Gemini. That'll have a different cost structure to your business, and you'll also have different capabilities. So your strategy will dictate your costs. And I just kind of wanted to add that for my personal business, which is in software, I've grown up building software. For me, it's worth essentially paying for everything. So I spend personally between $400 and $500 a month. Don't tell my wife. On these tools. And I raise that because, if you extrapolate what it costs for individuals in your company to do the same thing, it's in the hundreds of dollars a month that I would suggest is kind of reasonable to spend. And go to the next one. So yeah, security, privacy, and control. I kind of wanted to just raise an example that sort of struck me as a little bit surprising recently, like 2 nights ago. Has anybody had conversations with the voice version of ChatGPT? Yeah. So I don't know if it's default on, but it was for me, or maybe I turned it on and forgot. But that version of ChatGPT, or maybe just the latest version, has a memory. There's a little toggle in your settings in ChatGPT. Turn on a memory. And my family was asking me questions about various things, and I was curious to ask. I said, hey, ChatGPT, what do you know about me? And it proceeded to tell me all of its memories that it has of my conversations with it. And it wasn't exactly everything I wanted to share in that moment.
That is a little feature you can turn on and off.
Yeah. Okay, it's a feature. I didn't turn it off.
Yeah.
So think about that from a standpoint of security, right? This is just software at a pretty basic level, right? Software has had InfoSec issues for decades, right? You can put nice, interesting things inside a piece of software. It's going to get hacked. What happens when it gets hacked? This is a new piece of software, but there's a new sort of landscape of privacy that is implied in AI, things that you can't even think of, and it's just going to get more complicated, I think, over the next few years. So memory is a big one. As these AIs become more long-running and more persistent and personalized, they're going to have information about your users and about you that you wouldn't typically share because you're saying like personal things to it. Next slide. Yeah, we can skip that one. So the big thing, industry landscape and future trends. I mean, I have 8 minutes. I could probably take 80 minutes on this. But I've done some recent research and consulting on this subject, and there's a lot of trends that are emerging. Probably one of the most useful things to look at is the Gartner hype cycle on anything related to AI, and sort of back away from that, how that might influence your business. But a couple of the big things are autonomous agents. I think it's pretty much a lock that in the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years, we will all have some version of an autonomous AI agent that can go do work for us, real meaningful work. There's already companies emerging like 11x for the sales vertical. So your sales team in the next 5, 10, 15 years, probably gonna be predominantly AI based. And then on down the line, right? There's use cases in the industry and business that really, the state of the art is being pushed by this push to have agents. Let me look at my notes real quick because there was something I wanted to mention. Oh yeah. So yeah, the other thing I was thinking about this is there's a really great book that was written a couple decades ago called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. If you haven't read that, it's a great read. One of the points that is made in that book is about, disruption. And when you talk about the industry landscape in AI and future trends, to me, I try to step back and think about how it could disrupt my industry, my clients' industries. And in that book, there was a story that was mentioned about how Cisco won a great deal of the networking business in the 90s. And the story really centers around the fact that networking hardware in the 70s and 80s, leading up to the 90s, was about hardware. It was about the actual physical bits or physical transistors. In the 90s, a lot of the power and the sort of competitive advantage of networking moved to software. It moved to centralized servers, centralized networking devices. I think that's a kind of an analogy that's happening in AI, is that there's a lot of things that we all assume needs software, and software is sort of the answer for a lot of things. I think that AI is going to take over a great deal of those things that software does. So whereas you might have had software handling a particular area of your business, AI is going to handle that. That's still software, but it's not something that you need to implement or integrate. And there's specifics that I can go into, but this is becoming something core to my beliefs. And kind of the way I've sort of summarized this in my mind recently is, back in the day when I was a startup young engineer, I was consistently impressed and was happy if I could be clever in my solutions to software, right? Cleverness won the day. If I could take something and it was hard before, and just using my mind, I could be clever and create a software approach. I actually think that software-based cleverness is kind of dying. Month over month, we're seeing the AI scenarios taking over the need to be clever by the individual is lessening. And so in its place, I think there's going to be other things we can focus on. One of them that comes to mind for me is courage. If you just have the courage to find a problem you want to solve, you have much more capability today to go out and solve that problem because you don't require all the cleverness. AI can handle it for you. So that's the kind of the big theme that's driving a lot of what I'm looking at with the trends. We could talk a lot more about the specifics, but at a broad stroke, I think it's kind of cleverness over, or rather, courage over cleverness. So
yeah, I had one thought when you were talking, Brad, just about Mayo was talking about paying attention to the cycles or the landscape of your industry. And I'm a marketer. I'm in the marketing space. And so AI has a lot of implications on what I do professionally. And I always tell people if you just write copy and you write marketing copy as your profession, I would think about something else to do, because AI is going to get better and better at a lot of the basic marketing tactics of things that businesses are going to be able to have an agent that is going to, in a sense, be their marketing tool for the nuts and bolts of what most they need on a daily basis. There's still going to be a need for people that knows how to curate, and this is something I've been thinking about because AI has the ability to create. So I have been able to accelerate ideas so much faster because the ability to use AI to move things forward. But AI still needs humans who understand what's required to go in the front end and understands what needs to come out the back end to be able to be a viable product. And so we still need to be able to curate well. We need to be able to communicate and curate well. And the AI can do a lot of the work in the middle. And then AI doesn't have taste. It's humans that ultimately have taste on the back end. Is this something that's even good? So even from writing copy and marketing, for example, is that you can turn out a lot of things that look really good, but they're really there's no nuance, right? There's no subtlety. There's no real connection to a voice or to a brand. It's just stuff. And I think most of us are smart enough that we call bullshit on it when we see it, right? You read things and you just instantly, now our brains are getting more and more wired to just doesn't feel authentic.
It's shallow.
It's shallow. Why does it not feel authentic? Because it still is missing that kind of human element to it. And there are, like I said, there's a lot of the nuts and bolts, kind of the boots on the ground stuff that happens in my industry that's going to be accelerated quite quickly and be taken over by some of these tools. But there still needs to be a thinker to understand, is this right for the outcomes that I need on the other side? And it's just that kind of idea of just curation over creation. Right, of just being able to kind of think about the simplicity versus over subtlety, because AI seems to make things really, really simple, but there's still a subtlety that the human brain needs to make. And I think there's one thing I'd go farther to. It's that there's the human connection, the piece that happens with kind of the empathy and authenticness that happens in life. It doesn't show up even when it's faked with AI tools. It just, again, our human brains, I think, pick up on it. And so we can get great context. We can do great analysis on data, but without the human ability to connect and have empathy and to read between the lines of that information, you're just getting information. And if we get in this place where we're constantly relying on this stuff on a day-to-day basis, it's just going to be one big piece of white noise that everything is going to communicate the same. And so there still needs to be a humanity in the midst of it. And I talked earlier about AI being flawed, and this idea of being the human in the loop is so important. It's so important for us to manage where AI goes in the future, but it's also important as it becomes our cell phones, as AI becomes our calculators, and it goes from being new and novel to being normal. We still have to bring our own humanity in the midst of it, how it works for it to really just be authentic and to feel right, And so anyway, that's a little bit of my AI soapbox there for a minute.
Hashtag Team Human. So I'm on Team Human as well, but I'm probably a little more pessimistic about how many things can or can't be done by AI in the future. So, rather, I'm optimistic that they will be able to be done.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
Yeah, so let's maybe open it up for some questions in person. Thank you. We got some back here.
Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
This is Preston here.
Hey, Preston.
Hey, so last year I asked you a question about how mixed reality would implement their technology of the visual 3D element within our real world with AI, and now it's a year later. How do you think that has changed? Because there's clearly still a push in this mixed reality kind of world.
Yeah, my personal opinion is that in the consumer electronics space, it's still early. There's still a bit of the companies are pushing the envelope to see how it lands. You see things like the Apple Vision Pro $3,500 device that I think it sold well initially, but there hasn't been a lot of uptake. But my understanding is that the form factors of VR, AR glasses are still sort of settling out. But I think the AI, the shifts in the industry behind those devices is not slowing down. Everything is becoming cheaper and more open source, readily available. So the ability, for instance, to put on a pair of glasses and have the camera in those glasses scan the room and create a virtual map of the room is becoming essentially free, right? So these are technologies and processes that would have been very expensive in the past. So I don't think any of this slows down. Whether it's consumer ready, I guess, is the big question. I personally can't afford an Apple Vision Pro to like sit on my shelf and not get used. But I think in the next 2 or 3 years, something in between that device that totally covers your face and a pair of glasses is probably in our reality.
Thank you, Brad. Actually, one more thing that I didn't see you put up on the screen, because there's like 5,000 AI companies now, right?
Yes.
Google Notebook LM. Have you heard of it?
Yep. I was a very early user of that.
That is so cool. Like, we did it for our organization, and people were just blown away at like how accurate it feels like a real person.
Yep.
Them talking to each other.
Yep. Notebook LM. If you didn't hear that, it's a Google product. There's so many tools. I mean, at some level, producing slides for a show like this has been very challenging this year because we've reinvented the things we're talking about and focusing on like every 2 weeks. So I have found personally, since ChatGPT and Perplexity have enabled actual real-time web search. So if you didn't know, ChatGPT can now search the web. The best tool for finding new AI tools happens to be AI.
Yeah, I want to make one note. Brad prompted me to this, especially if you are kind of like just in those early stages of adopting AI in anything that you're doing, particularly if you want to operationalize it, is you're going to have a flexible mindset because stuff's going to change on you. It's not like you're just opening Excel and it's pretty much the same thing it's been for forever. Like the tools change, its ability changes.
That video that we produced for this conference that you saw when we first showed up, 96% of it was perfect. And then randomly in the middle of the generated video, it just started, I don't know, speaking Portuguese or something. It just decided not to speak English. It's not always perfect.
It's not always perfect. And just being able to have a flexible mindset, knowing that you're going to be using these tools, you're going to be testing their efficiency and effectiveness, and then they're going to be a new tool or an update to that tool that's going to require you to kind of rethink the way that you're using your tools and stringing them together. So,
yeah. Other questions? There's one here. Oh, here.
Hello.
Hello, Chad.
Hey. Okay, so this is kind of a tough one, but
tough questions go to you.
No, for me to actually articulate, because it's been banging around in my brain.
Still processing.
I guess it comes down to like change management. And there's a lot of business owners in the room right now, and you touched on earlier, you had like 8 employees, 12 employees a year ago, and you've got it down maybe half that, and they're doing the same amount of work or something like that, roughly.
Yeah, actually, so I didn't reduce employees.
You just are doing the work of.
Yes, that's like
so
2.5 times
5x
probably on
everybody or
average
something.
of the amount of work. So
there's a lot of business owners in the room, probably, that are going to have to go through the operational piece, like you said. You got to have this ops, and you'll start to tear apart the operational pieces of your business, looking for bottlenecks and whatnot that are good candidates for automation. How do you navigate the change management aspect of that? Meaning, how do you deal with the employees that could be displaced by that bottleneck that's now removed?
Yeah, I think that obviously is a case-by-case, organization-by-organization kind of scenario. I made a choice that I'm not replacing anybody with AI. I was going to use AI to be able to enhance their potential jobs. The reality of it is that sometimes people may need to be moved within an organization, or someone does get let go. I mean, if you think about any other major revolution that has happened, it's displaced people. Industrial revolution, technological, it just changes the way that we do business and people get pushed out. But it also creates new opportunities. I mean, Brad and I have had long conversations about all the potential jobs that exist in sales and tech. Like when we have these physical, I think it's a reality within 5 years that we'll have physical AIs in our homes, potentially taking care of elderly or disabled, and then there's a whole market that gets created around supporting and selling and tech support and training and all those kind of things. You know, obviously it's a personal leadership ethical decision on what you do with around those kind of things in the change management part.
I think
some people are going to be super slow to adopt and accept it. The reality of it is, it's like we all use the internet, and it came and now it's normal. AI is going to feel like that very shortly. Just like, you know, a 2-year-old kid knows how to operate one of these things like it's nothing. You know, AI is going to be like that within the next generation. It's just part of who we are.
Yeah, this is a really hard question to navigate, but I've been trying to think of an analogy that can help me work through it. And one of the ones that seems to be at least somewhat helpful has been 3D printers. So for me, that's an example of a technology that came and sort of, there was this harbinger of, oh my gosh, you're not going to need to go to the Target and buy your kids toys anymore. You're going to just print your kids their toys, right? Well, that's not really how it panned out. It was kind of, there's been all this fracturing of ways and reasons to use 3D printing and sort of a hobby maker community around it. And it's not that it isn't a thing, it's just hasn't become exactly what the sort of zeitgeist thought it was going to be. And so I think that for the AI, real useful AI work in the workplace, I'm not sure we really fully know exactly how it's going to settle out. But to assume that you're going to quote unquote replace people, I think that the more I read about and study AI in the workplace, the less I believe that's actually a risk. Yep. Back in the back.
Hello? Yep. So there are many companies that use the AI nowadays, right? And let's say I built $1 billion algorithm using an AI.
Congrats.
Yeah. Is there a possibility in future that all these AI companies come back for the ownership and all these companies that use the AI?
Did you hear what he said?
I'm not sure I grasped
Like if I
it.
build a product in the future and I've used AI to do it, will those companies come back and try to claim ownership on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so the very simple answer to me is if I use a hammer to build a house, the hammer has no correlation to who owns the house, right? It's a tool that was used to build the house. That's a very naive answer. If you produce creative work from an AI that is proven to have like a chain of essentially copyright violations back to the original source, you're probably in trouble. Not every AI is going to have that problem, which is why these companies are getting out ahead of these creative services. Adobe is the biggest example. I believe Adobe has basically put into all of their AI generative products that essentially they will back you up in court if you get sued about the output of your content. So that's a more graphic design, artistic scenario. I think you're talking more about like software generation. It's always been hard to prove who owns what, and really nothing is original, right? Somebody copies code from looking at the source code of a web page and puts it in their product. Is that their software? Did they copy it? Who owns that piece of software? So these problems have always existed. It's just that AI makes it so much more feasible to do it all the time.
Yeah.
So
we got like 4 seconds, but I want to say something real quick. You guys, anybody ever heard like in the office environment, someone asks a question and you say, "Let me Google that for you"? Has anybody ever heard that? There's a similar phrase. Pretty much, if you want to know what you can do with AI, ask AI. If you want to know how to prompt, ask it how to prompt. I mean, it really is a tool within itself that will train you on how to use it. If you're looking for an outcome, just saying, "I'm looking to accomplish this. How do I do it?" And it will walk you through the process of doing it. It's pretty cool that way. So just if you're struggling to get traction or want to figure out how to use it in a certain way, just ask it how to do it, and it will help you.
thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
guys for your time. Appreciate it.
Woohoo!